text today is on the Oregon Trail, and we've learned a little bit about the Oregon Trail from our book, If You Wanted to Travel West in a Covered Wagon, that we studied when we were learning about covered wagons. And as you can see in the illustration on page 6 here, they traveled the Oregon Trail in covered wagons. And they were trying to get from the east coast of the United States to the west coast because they were fighting for that land to be America's land, and because other countries were wanting to send people to take over that land as well. So they had to get a bunch of people quickly across the United States to the other side. And the fastest way back then was with your covered wagon, because you wanted to take all your stuff along the trail with you, and there were no cars, there were no planes, we didn't have any of that kind of stuff yet. So this text is a special text because it's written in diary entries, and so we get to see kind of a first-hand account of someone who was on the trail and what it was like for them on the trail as they were traveling to their new home. So let's take a listen to the Oregon Trail.
Short Read 1. Remember to annotate as you read. The Oregon Trail. May 17th, 1849. Dear Diary, we've been on the Oregon Trail for 2 weeks. I'm exhausted. Papa and I walk while Mama and the baby ride. Papa says it's because our weight would be too much for the mules. Yours truly, Edith.
So if we had to come up with the main idea of this entry, I would say that it is that Edith is tired because she's having to walk. And we learned that when we were learning about covered wagons. I think the original thought was that they all rode in the wagons, but they actually didn't. The wagons were more for carrying the things, and they went so slow and were so bumpy that they weren't very comfortable to ride in anyway. And so that's what Edith is sharing here, is that they had to walk and it was exhausting. Let's see what the next diary entry talks about.
June 29th, 1849. Dear Diary, rain, rain, and more rain. Now the trail is more like soup. Today our wagon got stuck in the mud. As a result, a wheel broke. It was another setback. Yours truly, Edith.
Okay, so this one talks about another challenge. So the first challenge was that they had to walk, and that was exhausting. This challenge is the weather, and specifically the rain and the damage that the rain caused to the trail. So the trails were mostly dust, and sometimes they were tall grasses, but they did not have pavement like we have today. And so when the weather was bad, it made the land really marshy or hard to get through. I love that she says the trail was more like soup, because that gives me a really good image of what it might look like. If it looks like soup, I kind of am picturing a mud soup there, right? And then on top of that, their wheel broke. She says it was another setback. Another tells me that they must have had a lot of challenges before this one that we don't know about, because she says another one. And so definitely would be a setback to have a broken wheel, but this must have been a challenging trail to tackle. All right, let's see what the next diary entry talks about.
July 14th, 1849. Dear Diary, sunrise brought a magnificent sight. A herd of buffalo grazing on the plain. Our provisions have been getting low, so we stopped at an Indian village. We traded some iron pans for other supplies. Yours truly, Edith.
So here we've got an image that helps to clarify the text. She says that they got to see a herd of buffalo grazing on the plain. And the buffalo were huge animals. So this was really kind of a crazy thing to see, because they were all these giant animals. I've even read that they could feel the ground shaking when the herd would run by, because they were such big animals. She says the provisions were getting low, and so they stopped to trade. if I wasn't sure what provisions mean, I can use my context clues here. It says we traded some iron pans for other supplies. So provisions must be their supplies. And we know what supplies they needed because we packed those in our wagons when we were studying covered wagons. So we know that their supplies were mostly food and tools and medicine, things that they would need to survive. So this paragraph, I would say the main topic is getting to trade for provisions, right? That's kind of an important fact in here.
August 1st, 1849. Dear Diary, we have arrived at Soda Springs. The water has bubbles in it like soda water. We are going to stay here for an extra day because we need the rest. We can bathe in the hot springs, and Mama says the water is great for making bread. Yours truly, Edith.
So I want to draw your attention to the dates here. The first one is May 17th, and now we're all the way in August, and they're still traveling. So imagine, when you go on a long road trip, how after even just a few hours, you're kind of worn out of it. And here they've been traveling for months at this point. Soda Springs was a real location where it was kind of a big point where people could, like a landmark that people would say, oh, you're almost to Soda Springs. And they did have water with bubbles in it, like soda water. And so that was kind of a fun place for them to get to, something to look forward to along the trail.